All right. I am back, folks. I did not go live yesterday. What am I talking about? Did not go live last week. So I was sick. So this is, in a way, making up for that. Well, catching up. I was sick. What am I going to say? I'm not going to apologize about it. People get sick. That being said, it did throw me off. It did throw me off a little bit. And that's fine. I think what might be cool to do here is let's a change log. Let's tell this progress report. I like that. We'll give that a nice little icon. So to give you guys an idea of my progress. So first draft is now written for automaton. I always have to think about that. That's what spell check does to you. Is you you rely on spell check. You trust spell check, and so when you encounter a word that inevitably you second guess yourself on, you can never get it right because you're always like, what does spell check say? We've all been there, right? So first draft automaton hoax. This is done. That doesn't look good. Very good. That doesn't look very good. Here. Check mark. Ew. I don't like that. I don't like that. But then there's the green check mark. That's also. Anyway, first draft. We're there. We are line editing. That's what we're doing. This. You know what? I think what we'll do is we'll just simply remove current revision color. Let's not do a revision mode. None. Right. So line editing, and then we're doing consistency editing, and right. Line editing, and then descriptive. Suppose we've got things that are being plotting. We're doing that here. Okay, so here's where we are. We are at Jotnar 1 is currently being plotted, as is Chaduraji, which is that's Scions 13. And then there's a new book that I am plotting. And that is this guy right here. I don't know that I'm going to plot this today necessarily. Also, kind of plotting a fun Star Wars 40K crossover. I've had to. I thought initially that I was just going to dive into it, and then I started going into some 40K lore. And then I bought some miniatures, and now I've painted them. All I wanted to do, my only intention was to write a short story, and now I've spent money. I don't know how that happened. Anyway, that is another thing. It's going to be short, but it's for fun. So those are all kind of in the plotting stage. The first draft of Automaton Hoax, this is done, so it is on to line editing. Consistency edit, we are actually finishing this up for Dark Horse. That is a lot of what we're going to work on today. And then descriptive edits, we aren't there just yet. Technically, we also have Zeppler doubling in here. That actually would be first. And this is Scions 11. And Scions 12. This is where we're at right there. So those are in the line editing stage. You know, this Scions 10 is what this is. This guy has to be ready by this week for for ARC readers and so forth. So we've got to get to that. I'm going to change that real quick. But yeah, that's where we're at so far. This guy almost done being plotted. Probably I might spend a little bit of time on that. This one's really exciting. Probably going to happen. The outline's probably going to happen after I finish this outline. Okay. So we are diving back into episode 10. And let's see, I need to see comments. Okay. Yeah, this is a consistency note. Just going to label these. Dealing with unmodified humans. It doesn't seem so. Yeah, this is fun. I write on my phone. So occasionally I write the word the, and my phone thinks I'm trying to say the word rhetorical for whatever reason, and it just plugs that in there. This is supposed to be the word the. That's what that is. I should change revision modes. Okay. Okay, yes. All right. What is going on here? Yeah, that's a consistency note. We'll address that. Applied to the Jotnar combat system armor system. This should be armor. New talent. Yep. Okay. Well, that's actually resolved. Then that was a quick one. Let's see. Not just one. That one. Yes, we know that. It was a miracle. It was only 1, 2. Well, black team and white team had always been 5. There had been 1 catch. That's the thing. So the thing is, Alex is this character that's being referred to here, but he's dead. He's dead. And quite frankly, it doesn't make sense for there to be a gap in white team. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of odd. It's kind of odd. Yeah, this is odd. Yeah, this. there's been more casualties than that, so I'm not gonna say that. It's actually inaccurate. They're chosen because of their aptitude. Yeah, I mean it's a good note, but yes, I know that already. I'm telling myself things I already know. Okay, this is a final edit note. Is that what that is? Unmodified humans here. Yeah, that's fine. Nothing. I don't see anything wrong with that. Okay, they are all awash. No good. I can't make it. The man-made ones. Oh, that's why. That's why I left that note there. There was a reason why that note was there, and I smartly ignored it. No good. I see we're dealing with. Yeah, they would be unmodified. Yeah, I think this is okay because the way it goes, I think that's okay. Only a few that had managed to survive the Grakon attack on their homeworld and were found able to be civilized again. Most had lost their minds, descending into unfettered violence in the absence of their new masters. Abandoned killing machines left to self-destruct by their own devices. There was no way to make more of them. This is the thing. Like, how do I... Whoops. This is a consistency question here. Do I keep that capitalized? Is that... You don't remember all the things, usually. You'd surprise yourself. You think you would. But you don't usually remember all the things. Where would that be? Where would that be? Well, I could fumble around here for it and try to find it, but I don't know. I don't know that I will. I'll have to come back to that. There's no way to make more of them. Well, of course she's one of them. She would know. She would know what she and the others had been through, what the Racon, yep, there we go, had done to them that couldn't be replicated, at least not under what? Well, I mean, what they put him through is hell. That's what they got put through. Okay. Oops. All right. That couldn't be replicated, at least not under military supervision. Right? Like it would have to be done. It would have to be done outside of the law. And actually, that's a good point, because that's actually foreshadowing something, at least not under Saron law. But that's not really the main limitation. They don't have the stuff to do it. We'll just leave it at that. So yeah, this is a problem for hadn't always been for. Well, gee, that's the problem. Oops. For the four of them, forming a circle. Yep. So thankfully, there's only a few mentions of the number 4 here. Wait a minute. 4 sides. Okay. All right. Where am I? We're 24 inches, surrounded on 4 sides. The 4 of them, always been 4. Had been 1 casualty. That casualty was a long time ago, though. So this, we watched as the team came together. The 5 of them, and I'm going to leave that note there because that needs to be noted. They hadn't always been 5, a black team and white team, and there had been 1 casualty. It was a miracle that it was only 1. As not many really been able to survive the intensity of the training they had undergone. Yeah, I'm going to just delete that. Relic received a message on his wireless. I'm glad I caught that one. And then this abrupt, okay. That is a thing, and this is a thing I'm keeping. And okay, we are moving on. Okay. Oh, this chapter. This chapter is called Pi. Yeah, hologram. It's not a holographic beard. His hologrammatic. Hologram. Is that a? That's not a word. He's hologram beard. That's fine. This is a note of a location. They were in a small room. That's descriptive. A more human approach. That's a phrasing bit. The cylinders. This is consistency, but I think that's how we're referring to them. Identify who the cultists. They told him the cylinders. Let's find. Okay. I missed one. Nearly to the point of worship. Or devoted them to the point of cult-like worship. The cultists had told him. Yeah, that's capitalized. Waste no time passing through. That's fine. I'll take care of that. Mentioned earlier, engineer priests. Oh, yeah, great. That's a nitpicky thing. First mentions of Evan's children. Yes, it is. Whoa. That's a good note there. Oh yeah, that's a thing I need to know. Winking down into the chair, sinking. That's pretty funny. Is this what they call it? The glom is dead. Yeah, the new conglomerate, yes. The new glom. Herman Constant was a nice change of pace from the constant activity. I guess maybe descriptive. Councilwoman, yes, that's good. Oh, that's a good point. Whole word. Okay, I should do that in here. Find you next. And in here. Find it in here. Okay, that's not a good deal. Don't have to worry about it. Okay, that is a. What should that be? Yeah, that's a blue note. Is what that is. Beneath a mountain of what? Of what? Of what? Of data? Yeah, I think we'll go with that. He stepped out rhetorically. Every time the word the. That doesn't even make sense why it would suggest that word. Before he stepped out rhetorically, that makes no sense. Okay. Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. Oh, yeah. Is that poker terminology? I wanted to be sure. In poker, is it a straight or straight? I think it's with a GH. Yeah, it is a GH. GHT. Yes, Surly is female. Yep, that's a good note there. Goat, lots of call signs in here. Probably our overt pilot. Yes, what? No, that's not it. Is our best? I think that's what they're trying to say there. That's what spell check or autocorrect will do to you. It's a pain in the butt. Yeah, we know that. That's we know that. This word. I need to be consistent about this word. So, what have I done historically from the beginning? I think that's what matters the most. Because it always catches me. Like, if I go back to Bad Bishop, book 1, I think I have it in there as one word. I do. That's not technically correct, but that's the way I did it. And so that is the way I will continue to do it, even though it is not technically correct. And so that's why I made that note for myself. We use wing mates, one word. And that is a blue note. Overused phrase, sharp gaze. There it is again. That's a descriptive. And did you hear it? The shouting in the background, it sounded like the captain. Describe better seems, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, we can look at that later. The lanyard, or to reach the lanyard. I mean, that's fine. I think that's fine. The hatch released, falling to the floor outside the access hatch. So this is just a repetitive word that I've marked here. The hatch released, falling to the floor outside. We could just say outside with a loud clang. There we go. That resolves that. Let me get rid of that. Because it seemed no one had. After a long moment waiting, it seemed no one had. Okay, what anyone in the hall that had heard the noise might have assumed the worst, but after a long moment waiting, it seemed no one had. Might have assumed the worst. We'll say and come in to investigate. After a long moment of waiting, it seemed no one had heard anything at all. There we go. I think that's Scoffed. Okay, I guess I like to use scoffed more frequently. That's just a note to myself. Okay, fair enough. The chapter title, Straight. That would be funny because I mentioned a straight earlier. That would be interesting. Interesting. That's worth considering. Empty or straight? Actually, that should be green. Okay. Next chapter. Whoa. Shouldn't have been scrolling. Oops. There. Cause unexpected. Okay. It's descriptive. Not under plate. Descriptive. Against the stone. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. No, that doesn't make any sense. I'll just say hard. Let's just go with that. Descriptive, I suppose. How nothing in particular stood out to her, recalling the day's events. Oh, yes. Oh, this one's so weird. So weird. So weird. With rhetorical point. Yeah. This is going to be a final thing I have to look at. Oh, this is a good one. Oops, not purple. Blue. Apostrophe A. This is another thing that my good deal. It's not there. Are both of those supposed to be capitalized? Generally speaking, your ours are his. Yes, okay. So yes, your should be capitalized. That's what I thought. That makes this a blue. Highlight, capitalize your. There we go. Let me see if I can find that elsewhere. I've probably done that. Whoops, needs to be a space there. There. Good. Yes. Good. Wonderful. Excellent. Good. Yes. What was that? Just like the only one then that I missed? That one? I'm searching through the whole document. Let me know, please. That's that one I found. Was it the only one? It might have been the only one. Well, that's pretty good. That's a lot of your majesties. Okay. Okay, we've got the last one. They were all good. It was just that one. That's just that one we were missing there. Okay. Good deal. Good deal. Yeah, we'll use that. That's a descriptive note there. We'll take a look at that. Caps on the monolith. Yes, it's a specific. That's the name of the place. So it is. Something that needs to be capitalized. Or you know what? Let's not ignore the case and let's be smart this way. Okay, good. They should all be capitalized. Excellent. What's this comment? One of the guards stepped around the other two, trying to form a semicircle around her. So how can you form a semicircle with 3 points? Because technically a semicircle only has 2 points. Technically. Technically. We'll look at that at the descriptive. Too abrupt, the guards should initiate. Probably. When a clear response came through. No, that's fine, but maybe we'll. Okay. Good. Okay, that's a note for myself. That's a note for myself. What is this? Oh, air rushed past her as the door creaked open. The door opened to flat ground, bookended on either side by steep hills. As the door bladed. Gosh. Oh, the little things. It's all the little things, man. All the little things. My dude, my guy. Okay. Open and opened inside. Rhetorical furnace. Furnoscus. Dampened by the environment inside the furnace. And the furnace should not be italicized. I think that's what I realized. Ignore case. Okay. Yeah. Rook. Yep, it's Ryan. Glad I saw that. None of them speaking a word. I thought I could call on you for help. It seems I assumed too much. There we go. The member of Red Team made an appearance. Stepped out. From the cover of the trees. When do we leave then? Okay. It opened. Cold air rushed past her as the door creaked open. The door opened to flat ground. Door creaked as the door creaked ajar. That's not great, but okay. It's a short chapter, so thankfully nothing too crazy. With the engineer priests, that's a good question. They maybe shouldn't have a. That's a consistency question, honestly. That's a consistency question, and I'm doing a consistency edit. So I should be answering that right now, shouldn't I? Shouldn't I? Oh, jeez. Why do I get myself into these things? Whose idea was it to edit the book? Why can't the book just be perfect? The way it was written. They never are. I'm going to leave that for the final one. I want to think about that. I think she would have done that if for no, not for a good. Oh, that sentence sucks. Oh, that's the High Councilwoman advised you to consult with them. She must have a good reason. When you write sentences like this, you know it should be so much simpler. I do not think she would have done that if not for a good reason. She probably had a good reason. Let's see. The High Councilwoman advised you to consult with them. She probably had a good reason then. She has the collective wisdom of all Krizen going back millennia, even in her current form. I am not the one to make the call, but I would advise you to not to ignore her suggestions. Okay. I could be the one to go to them first. What do you mean this would have consequences? They are used to dealing with me on a more professional basis. What do you mean this would have consequences? I left a note here that I don't fully understand, so that's great. To what? Perhaps there were advantages to it after all. That's a good question. It's a very good question. If he were his father, ugh, or any of his forebears, he would have kept an iron grip on those beneath him. Perhaps there were advantages. Oh, the dogs are barking. There were advantages to it. Yes, that's a good question. To perhaps there were advantages to it. It being what? And we're talking about totalitarianism, the supreme confidence of absolute power. Let's see here. Perhaps there were advantages to it after all. Supreme confidence of absolute power, and yet that temptation had eluded him all his life. So we're saying perhaps there were advantages to what? What am I calling this? Totalitarianism to what? Well, the problem is I've already used absolute power. That's kind of what I'm referring to here. If his father ruling with an iron fist. Gosh, this is when you need a thesaurus. Totalitarianism. Thesaurus. Oops. Yoy. No, I don't need to know how to pronounce totalitarianism. I know that. Authoritarianism, autocracy, tyranny, despotism, tyranny and despotism. There we go. Perhaps there were advantages to tyranny and despotism. Haha. Oops, I wasn't even actually typing. Tyranny and despotism. After all, I don't know. There's some advantages for sure if you're the tyrant, the supreme confidence of absolute power. And yet that temptation had eluded him all his life. There we go. I found it. It took me a while, but I found it. Okay. We're good there. On to the next one. Where are we? Holding deck. Oh, okay. That's just a note for the future to reuse that. Yep. That's also a note for the future. We know that. Guard uniform, white arm. That's a factual note that I'm keeping track of. So that gets marked as blue. She hugged him like a brother. That's not a great way to introduce. She hugged him, squeezing tight. That's good enough. He becomes a love interest for her, so that would be like, we're not wanting to put him in the friend zone. He's already there, but then he surprises her later, and so we don't want him to get like deeper into the friend zone. You know what I mean? Oh, he's got to claw his way out of it. which he eventually does. Well, he does. He doesn't even claw his way out. LT, yeah, he is lieutenant. That is correct. That's a redundant note. I don't need them. Don't need that either. Ah. The white stars are everywhere. What does that mean? So what's happening on the rest of the ship? Asked Fiddle. The white stars are everywhere. I think they're referring, should really be referring to, Sentry said. He's referring to the people. That's what he's referring to. Yep, I know. That's italicized. This is... Oh, shoot. Oh, shoot. This is a big bad one. Great. The steel gaze. Okay. Despite his previous reactions. Despite what? We'll say 2 Gretchens. Surprise. Try to type, man. Obliged her, and she sat down next to her. Resting oblige. And Fiddle sat down next to her. Oblige. We'll just, yeah, that makes that a little bit neater. You know, it's only so picky you can get with that. But they had never committed such an act as this. That's a green note. I need to look at that one more time before it's done. Commit an act. Oh, committed an act. That's what it is. They had never committed such an act. Occasional rogue extremists would carry out. Okay, and then those 2 just get deleted. Muttering her mother would make her under... all the muttering her mother would make under her breath. Yes, okay, this is something that actually needs to happen. So that's descriptive. Who, though? Oh, why, though? For the video. Oh, okay, yeah, that's consistency note. It was for... Yeah, that becomes apparent. I don't need to spell it out for people. Where are we? Whoa. Oh, this chapter is a long one. Oh, my gosh. Is this the longest chapter in this entire series? It might be. 4454. I don't know that I have a chapter that tops that. Do I? 4454. I don't usually write chapters that are quite that long. Like the only place that I think anything could be that would 8. Whoops. No. No, these are actually very short chapters. In here. which is funny, all things considered. Yeah, I think it's literally the longest chapter. Okay. Rain check. That's the name of this chapter. We got some comments. That's the last place I saw him. Oh, yeah. Why was Tathis there? Okay. Oh, shoot. Oh. Recouped the seller. Regrouped. Yeah, that's a consistency thing. Didn't I do something, though? Didn't I do something back in that chapter? Hakon Gerris. Yeah, no, she doesn't. She doesn't name it herself. Um, where's Tethys in this chapter? Ah, yes. Okay. That's a descriptive edit. What's the matter with that? Have The Archon fleet. Other ways to take them out. There we go. Lord. Is he a lord? Lord, protector. He's a lord. Lord of something. Yeah, he'd probably be a lord. He'd have to be a lord. But yeah, what is his title? We need to determine that. Barefoot? Yeah, that's a good question. Looking those skinny goons up and down. Skinny. The palace grounds as scrawny. These two halfway. I could throw both of these two halfway across the palace grounds as scrawny as they are. Oh. E. Yeah, is it? Till. Yeah. Okay. Sometimes you just question yourself. Okay. Hold her by the collar. Okay. It seems fine to me. What's the matter with that? This is Hakon we're talking about here. He's a strong dude. He should be able to do that. Oh. She's not wearing it. She's in a dress. She doesn't have a collar. There's no collar. That's what that makes sense. Probably should be her neck then, I suppose. If that's what. Yeah, it's a dress. It's a dress. Yeah. No collar. Great Hall. Yeah, I don't. That's a good question. I think it is technically, isn't it? Should be capitalized, I believe. That's the name of that room. It's a name. Oh, there it is again. It should be. It's the name of the room. It's a very plain name, but it's the name of the room. So, so that's what we have to capitalize it. And yet you claim authority to call it the throne of Masav. Oh yeah. Oh, I see. He's okay with Gar sitting on it. For whom or why, and yet you claim the authority to call it the throne of Masav. You have no idea the blasphemy you spew out with every breath. Okay. That is a good point, but I don't know that that's going into that is going to really make much of a difference here. Let's leave that one blue. He was? Where was he? It's all confusing. I don't think that matters. It's technically a consistency note, but I don't think that matters. It's so... There's so much going on. Probably a better way to describe that. No, it's hack on. 2 Ks. Right? It's 2 Ks. Did I ever use a double A anywhere? Hack-on. Let's find that one. Where did I use the double A? See, I didn't. I only used the double K. So I second guessed myself there. And that's why I made that note. And at this time, the heir of Belengar. That's correct. That is correct. That's his father's name. And one last one here. And we should be good. Okay. How many? Oh, man. Okay. These are fun. All right. Okay. I want to, let's see. Let's back up just a little bit. I want to listen to this. Speech.
Cos gave him a nasty look, which hurt her face to make with all that contorting. Why'd you put me down then? I can hold my own. Besides, I know my way around here better than you do. She pointed down an adjacent hall to the west. That way. Cadden will be there. Hopefully he's with Mealer still. Tathis nodded to the south hall. No, he's down that way. Cos did a double take, looking down that hall and back to Tathis. You saw him. Tathis nodded. That's the last place I saw him, at least. He looks like his father. Cos punched him in the shoulder. His energy...
Okay. Yeah, what is he? We have to address why he's here. It doesn't get addressed. What were you doing here anyway? You weren't after him, were you? He shook his head. No. The goal was to eliminate the girl. Not eliminate. Neutralize. Priya? Why her? Okay. Okay. Just because. Fresh gust of air was in for sales, yes. Where? Tell me where my son is. This is of course. Any more? They've regrouped in the cellar. Cellar. Okay, fuck with mail or take them down there. Can only guess. That's what I saw. but I wasn't with them. A group of Hakon's men were in my way. I am not one for physical combat, as you know. Quite aware. I strode ahead of Gar. Tathis lagging ways further behind. The sounds of fighting going on outside the cellar rose to meet her ears. Keep going. Yeah, that needs to go up here. God, froze without warning. He was staring straight at Gar like he was seeing him for the first time. Thanks for the likes, folks, by the way. Got 3 likes on the live. That's nice. Like, I know that not a whole lot of people want to watch me edit my books. I have no delusions about that. This is like a consistency thing. For me, that's why I do this. It's accountability. Accountability. Where am I? Okay. That's better. I'm not going to be too worried about that. Oh, there's still so many notes in here, though. Yeah, but if we can get this consistency edit done, whee! It's a big deal. It's a big deal. The chief. Is he the chief? The chief. Chief engineer. Oh, the ardent. Chief engineer. Does he need a name? I don't know. He's not a character that's really going to be super prominent, so I don't know. I don't know that he needs a name. I'm not really revisiting him, but maybe if he comes up later, I need to note this so that I can name him earlier. Scraggly beard. Wee! I need to search for wee, apparently. It only comes up in the note. Okay, good. I think that should be fine. He went from the bridge, so yeah, that should be fine. I believe that's confirmed, so that's good. Mine is short, stubbly. We'll say stubbly. We're good. Well, okay. Before I call it a day, I have to look for, this should be orange, any orange comments. There should be a bunch of red, tons of red, and blue, and green, but no orange. It's the Saron three-pointed star, but inverted in the color of snow. This is a factoid. That does not need to be orange. That is blue. All my comments. Sudden change of heart. That doesn't make... What is this comment? I know... Oh, okay, this is one that... Yeah. Okay, so... Yep. What is this? This is in... They're only mentioned once in one chapter here. Yeah, it's a little weird. That is a little weird. It's a little weird. Okay. Where's the best time to mention them then? That's the real question. When is it a good time to mention them? Ooh. Well, I'm going to take a wee bit of a break, and so in the meantime, I'm going to let this play.
They're attaching to the hull? How in Off's name is that possible? Captain Reshko didn't seem to believe it, even as Gerald showed him again. He zoomed in closer this time on the vid screen, hoping that would make things a bit clearer. They slipped through the shield barrier. Sir, it can be done. But these are Cridson pilots. They're half machine, not just human like you or me. Reshko waved his plump hand. I get it. I get it. He peered closer at the vid screen on the master tablet base with that permanent scowl he always had on his face. His eyebrows always stood out on the ridge of his brow, being the only hair he had on his head to speak of. That thing doesn't even look like a ship. It looks like a fucking spider. He wasn't wrong. The Cridson ship looked like it was built to amble over terrain or climb a mountain, but in space, aerodynamics didn't mean anything. It had a jump drive and life support, and that was all that mattered. That spider-like ship with its six-leg-like projections was crawling up the hull of the Intrepid right before their very eyes. And Intrepid wasn't small either. For a Sarin battle cruiser, she was built sturdy, an old Bishop-class model from back in the day, the kind his father served on when he was in the Space Corps. All that to say, that thing on the hull was at least 3 times the size of a jump-capable shuttle, which implied its capabilities. So they just thought they would hitch a ride and we'd be none the wiser. Gerald shrunk the video on the screen of the master tablet base, pulling back to the radar view of their surroundings. He pointed to a handful of yellow blips in the far corner of the map. There's more of them, sir. This one was likely just taking the first shot. Captain Reshko nodded. Very well, Commander. Set us to Condition 1. Aye, sir. Gerald grabbed the comm, announcing to the whole crew. Condition 1. Repeat. All personnel be advised. Condition 1 throughout the ship. Reshko's scowl intensified as he looked down at the master tablet base. It was a fine instrument of Sarin invention, that little computer that sat between them on the dimly lit bridge. It was connected to each other tablet base computer on the upper deck surrounding them, each of them calculating 1,000,000 predictions per second. In the right hands, it was a scalpel, giving the user access to all combat data that Sarin had access to going back centuries. It meant nothing could surprise you, no enemy could outwit you, and the right move was always there to be found, in the right hands being the operative requirement. For Captain Reshko, a man who was committed to the old school method, the master tablet base was a crude bludgeon at best and at worst an obstacle. Still, Gerald appreciated some of his methods, calling orders over the comm to the entire ship, though he could do without. There were systems in place for that, but that bulldog Reshko did things the way he'd always done them. His way. The others are advancing, sir, Gerald indicated. Suggest launching fighter wings 1 and 2 as a deterrent. Reshko nodded. Make it so, and Gerald did. In his hands, the master tablet base was a fine-tuned instrument, and Reshko knew that. Gerald was sure it made the captain look good on his reports when the Admiralty reviewed his command performance at the end of the year. How much of that credit trickled down to him there was no way to know. Wings 1 and 2 underway, sir. He grabbed the comm. Coordinates incoming. Pawns. He drew the lines on the master tablet base, stretching out a perimeter around the ship. It was a safe play, not overly committed to any strategy, and would force the advancing Cridson to give up their intent early. If they were going to dive headfirst into the fray, it would become clear before long. Reports of hull integrity loss from engineering. Captain, shouted one of the other deck officers. They knew to speak up only when it was required of them. It's eating through the hull. Reshko snarled. Launch Wing 3 to take that thing down. I want it off our back as soon as humanly possible. Send out the battlespheres. 2. I can divert Wing 2 to that pause. You have your orders, Commander. Aye, sir. Gerald left Wing 2 where she was, pulling the third wing out of the nest, and he obliged Reshko's request for battlespheres as well. They were unmanned craft with little offensive capability, but their tactics and purpose were one of interference and disruption. EMP bursts and static webs could be used to disable enemy craft temporarily, and each battlesphere was equipped with onboard encryption crackers. specialized computers that would infiltrate enemy systems and dismantle them from within. Attack coordinates plotted. Sir, we'll have to see what they do. Reshko braced both hands on the table between them, leaning forward with his hefty frame. What are they? Pirates? I thought the Kridzen kept to themselves. The Kridzen did, indeed, keep to themselves. But Reshko hadn't spent the majority of his career fighting them. He had fought bigger monsters, more predictable ones, and thankfully, monsters who had decided not to pick fights with humanity any longer. They're probably Kridzen exiles, sir. They get kicked out if they don't conform to their collective hive mind. I don't know if they're pirates or scrappers, but judging from the damage our hull has taken already, they want to chop us up into pieces and make their dough on whatever is left behind. Reshko laughed. What is the conglomerate coming to? Gerald watched Wing 3 approach the Kridzen crawler that was attached to the hull of the Intrepid. They made a pass but to no avail, and the oncoming ships showed no sign of de-escalation, either. Wing 1 was already contending with
And I'm back. Okay. Okay. There we go. So it stopped playing. I noticed that. At some point it stopped playing, and I'm not sure how far it made it. I think it might have even stopped. Curious. Can it only do 1,000 words? Where's 349 words? I think that's around where it stopped. It can only do 1,000 words. Oh, that stunk. I had to use the bathroom, folks, being honest. So I had to step away. Okay, let's see. Jotnar. Whoops, it's under line editing, actually. It's here. So, spell check. I'm going to ignore. Ignore. We're ignoring that one. It's a name. We're ignoring that one. Standard. Oh. Yeah, that's fine. I think that's all fine. Ignore. Actually, that should be a learn. Iron Fist. Okay. So that's good. Oh, grammar. Wow. Oops. We should be using revision mode, right? Well, first, revision mode. First revision. Mark everything. Revised. Then revision mode. Second revision. Not stopping, not slowing down. Change. Among the dead. If there were more males among the dead that they carted away, yeah, we're ignoring that one. You do well too. I know there. See, it happens to authors too. Can I ask you a question about them? We're ignoring that. The ignore. Could have asked for in a candidate. Everything we could have asked for in a candidate. We're ignoring that. Oh, wow, yeah. It's only Oh. Yep. Racket, a racket, a racket. I think I'm putting a space between these now. Find next. The Praetor shut his eye. Yep, that is accurate. Okay. Let me just make sure. Okay.
Bastion Alpha was a mess. Blackwood had explained the backstory to him on his second visit to Alex's cell. It was a factory of some kind, derelict and abandoned long before the Graken showed up. They made textiles or something here. The first room he saw outside of his cell, and his was the only cell, was the common room. It was modest in size, with a balcony level above going around the perimeter. The ceiling was vaulted, made of glass with a layer of plastic sheeting under it to give just to make it even uglier. This place looks like it's going to fall apart, Alex said when he first looked at it. The Space Course is really that strapped right now. Blackwood must have been giving him a wry glare behind his sunglasses, a snarl appearing in the corner of his mouth. You know firsthand what the Graken have done to us. You've been out there, in the streets, maybe as one of them, but you know. Don't act surprised when this is all we can muster at the moment. Alex clenched his jaw, looking down at the cracked concrete floor. I'm not one of them. I was never one of them. Blackwood didn't flinch at Alex's tone. Touchy subject. I see. I get it. They made you do it. Never said they didn't. I don't take it personally, kid. So you shouldn't either. It's like ball players. Sometimes you get traded to a team you don't want to play for. That's not how it was. Blackwood shrugged, the lapels of his trench coat flaring out as he did. Again, don't take it personal. I don't care that you would have killed me if we'd met in the wild while you were. He paused, eventually deciding against continuing that train of thought. Let's just say, I'd have given you a run for your money. He pointed finger guns at him and clicked his tongue. Then he was right back to being stoic as a stone again. Is there anyone else here? Alex asked. I remember the military guys who were with you the first time. But how many do we have stationed here at Bastion Alpha? Blackwood shrugged again. He did that a lot and it was starting to get annoying. Beats me. I'm not a head counter. Not my line of work. But if that's more your speed, you and Commander Graves will get along like peaches and cream. Alex gave him a funny look. What is your job then? I don't see a rank on your coat. It's a standard military issue, though. And your hoodie. They gave me one of those way back when I enrolled in basic. Your boots, your slacks, even your glasses are all straight out of the surplus bin. Blackwood raised his hands in front of him and started slow clapping. Congratulations. You've identified me as a member of the armed forces. What branch? You're not a Marine. Blackwood's shoulders did their little jig again. Who knows? Maybe I was. You ever heard of such a thing? A former Marine? I always figured it was a lifelong sort of thing. Like a calling or something like that. Alex shook his head. You're impossible. You can't even give me a straight answer. Hey, don't be an ass. Kid, your chin is an ass. Blackwood scrunched up his face, then reached up to feel the cleft of his chin with his thumb. I got my chin from my mother. Thank you very much. You don't see me making fun of your big lips and your black hair, do you? Alex walked away from him, looking around the room. There were tables set out in a line. They were a mishmash of different types. A picnic table or two, a few more that looked to be card tables, and even a proper dining table. None of them were the same level, and there wasn't more than 3 chairs of a kind seated at any of the spots. When it's chow time, all the boys gather round here, Blackwood said. He stepped up next to Alex, arms folded in front of his chest. But you aren't ready for that yet. Doc still has to check you out, give you the all clear. You've got a doctor here. Yup, bona fide surgeon. She's a killer, though. She'll stop your heart cold. A shame really. We've lost more boys to her than we have the Graken. Alex couldn't interpret his code. What do you mean? Blackwood slapped him on the side of his arm. Just don't stare. The infirmary was on the opposite wing of the building. The mere mention of the doctor was apparently enough to warrant a visit. Blackwood led him through a corridor, the walls built out of brick. The lighting was temporary, rigged up to the ceiling with cords running along the length of the hall. They were passed by a pair of Marines, but they didn't pay him or Blackwood any mind. It was like they were invisible to them. I don't expect you to pass with flying colors the first time around, so don't worry, Blackwood started saying. But once you're in the clear, we can start talking about the nuts and bolts of things. What do you mean? Pass. We gotta make sure you're all there, kid. Make sure nothing important is missed. I don't expect you to pass with flying colors the first time around, so don't worry, Blackwood started saying. But once you're in the clear, we can start talking about the nuts and bolts of things. What do you mean? Pass. We gotta make sure you're all there, kid. Make sure nothing important is missing. What the Kraken did to you, what they put in you isn't easily expelled. Like I said before, you're the only one who's made it this far. And what happened to the others? They reached the doors to the infirmary, wooden and on floating hinges. Blackwood swung them both open wide. Doc had to put them down. Remember, don't stare. The infirmary was a tad more cleanly than the rest of the bastion. It wasn't as dingy, and Alex soon realized why. Everything he'd seen
Dingy.
so far had a thin layer of grime on it. The floors of the dingy.
Dingy. Yeah, that's correct. Cleanly. Yeah, okay. Jeez. The text to speech is gaslighting me. Like that what? Dingy.
Dingy, and Alex soon realized why. Everything he'd seen so far had a thin layer of grime on it. The floors of the infirmary were tile and mop clean. The overhead lights were a cold white, fluorescent and harsh. Even the walls looked to have been given a once-over. There was a line of beds on the left wall, much like the tables in the common room. Nothing was a match. They'd clearly had to do a patchwork job. A figure appeared from behind a curtain at the far side of the room. Alex now understood what Blackwood was warning him about. Alex, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing you to Dr. Sophia Reyes, Blackwood said, holding out his arm as though he were presenting him to royalty. She could have passed as royalty, though, even in that white lab coat, dark hair and eyes, a natural bronze skin tone, and pleasant figure. She wore a tan-colored tank top under her lab coat. Alex blinked. For a moment he felt a flutter in his chest. He knew it was the doctor standing there in front of him, but it was like he was seeing someone else. Like he was seeing her. Hey now, all those things I said back there were just jokes, kid, Blackwood said. He turned to Dr. Reyes. How strong is that power of suggestion stuff? You know, the psychosomatic symptoms and all. Dr. Reyes shook her head at Blackwood. You can ignore him for now. When you're in here, I'm the one in charge. She extended her hand, and Alex took it. Yes, ma'am. Dr. Reyes smiled. He talks. That's promising. Most of the others never did. Or at least, not in words we could understand. She motioned to one of the nearby beds. Have a seat. Let me get a look at you. Alex did as he was told. The bed was high enough off the ground that his feet dangled, just like when he was a kid. Doctor visits weren't something he'd ever liked. The shots were the worst. It wasn't until he was older that anyone told him he could look away when the needle went in. Maybe if Dr. Reyes had been his physician, it wouldn't have been so bad. She checked all the usuals. Eyes, ears, heart, blood pressure. Then she started looking at his skin. You're going to have some scarring from where the chitin sloughed off, it looks like, she said, rolling up his sleeve. She straightened, motioning to him. Take your shirt off. Alex raised both eyebrows, looking to Blackwood. Do it, kid. It ain't nothing we haven't seen already. Alex reached down and peeled his shirt off over his head, revealing his stomach, chest, and back. It's not all gone, Dr. Reyes remarked, reaching out to touch his pecs with her soft fingers. The black scales covered his chest and back, spread as far down as his navel. They used to cover everything after the Kraken had put them there. All it took was one, buried beneath the skin. He remembered the blister it had formed in the middle of his sternum, and the pus that oozed from it, too. When it popped, they started multiplying, spreading out all over him until he was scarcely recognizable as a human anymore. You're not saying anything, Blackwood said, shooting Dr. Reyes a glare from behind his sunglasses. What's this mean? Dr. Reyes blinked. She seemed used to working with Blackwood. Anyone else would have protested at the tone he used. But she didn't even react, like she'd heard it all before. The others don't lose theirs at all. Not until they died. Dr. Reyes turned him with her hands, looking at his back. They seemed to be staying close to his spine and his vital organs. When you said they'd started falling off, I thought they'd all be gone by now. I didn't look under his shirt, or in his pants for that matter. Do you need him to drop those? Blackwood suggested, clearly as a joke. Dr. Reyes nodded, her dark brown hair tumbling over her shoulders. Yes, actually. Blackwood nodded to Alex. Don't worry, kid. Performance anxiety is a real thing. We've all been there. You're an ass. Dr. Reyes snapped. Alex had to laugh. You ever notice how his chin looks like an? Dr. Reyes succumbed to a fit of giggling. Blackwood wasn't pleased. Get on with it, you two. I don't have all day. After I'm done babysitting, I'm going to be drowning in paperwork, and I'd like to get that finished before the sun comes up tomorrow. Alex stood from the bed, dropped his pants to his ankles. The whole ordeal didn't last long. He looked at the ceiling while Dr. Reyes took a few moments to check the recession of the chitin on his thighs, buttocks, and groin. That's good. Thank you. Alex pulled his pants back up. So do I pass? Blackwood did that thing with his shoulders again. That's not up to me. Besides, don't you need to prick him a few times? Doc. Dr. Reyes nodded. I do. Blood samples for sure. Urine and saliva could be interesting, too. I'm sure he'll give you whatever samples you ask for, Blackwood said with a smirk. You two have fun now. I'm off to get a surprise ready for you. Kid. Surprise. Blackwood was already walking away. Wouldn't be a surprise if I told you. Now, would it? Dr. Reyes stepped over to a side table, returning with a tray in her hands. Several syringes were laid out in a neat line on the tray. You afraid of needles? She asked, picking up a roll of wrap from the tray and pulling off a piece. You look tense. Alex couldn't stop moving his jaw. My mouth is dry. He shook his head. I'm sorry. The needles. Dr. Reyes looked down at the needles, then covered them with a cloth. You don't have to see them if you don't want to. Is that the issue? Alex took a breath. I'm sorry. It just brings it all back. Dr. Reyes nodded with a smile. I understand. I mean, as best I can. I can only imagine what they did to you. Alex laughed nervously as she laid a bedsheet over his arm to block his view of the needle. It's not what they did to me that was the worst part, he said. It's what they made me do.
Okay. Okay.
The skiff could hold approximately 30 bodies. It would depend on their size to quite a degree. If there were more males among the dead that they carted away on the skiffs, it was just under 25. There was rarely ever a corpse that was obese or overweight. It had been long enough since the fall that any survivors left behind were mostly starving or malnourished. 25 to 30 was a good haul. Sometimes more if there were children. But there weren't many these days. More than that, and the skiff would have a hard time staying off the ground, and dragging that hovercraft was not an option. Alex looked down at the fistful of hair in his hand. It was thick and black, a little longer than finger length. He let go, dropping the head of the corpse on the ground. He noticed the grass at his feet, in the shade beneath a line of trees at the edge of a field. He stopped there a while, a few yards from the skiff where the bodies were piling up. They weren't his hands anymore. They belonged to the Kraken now, covered in black scales that had grown into his flesh. The tips of his fingers had been transformed into claws, his knuckles into nuclear dusters. Alex looked up. It wasn't one of the Kraken. He was thankful for that at least. But it was Ryer, one of the others the Kraken had chosen. What are you doing? Ryer asked, approaching him from the other side of the skiff. Load the bodies, as you were told. Alex looked up at him. He may as well have been Alex's mirror image. They were about the same height and build. Whatever human features they had to distinguish them from each other were covered up by the scale-like chitin. Bony ridges formed a second set of ribs across the torso. A carapace of thick chitin had formed over Ryer's face and head, with a smooth black surface like a helmet. Alex's father had a motorcycle when he was young. He'd sometimes let him ride on the back. Don't tell your mother, he'd say, and then he'd always put that helmet on his head. He often remembered being free, before he'd been chosen. The Praetor is expecting a good haul, Ryer continued. Or maybe he's never stopped talking at all. Alex wasn't sure. I'll get back to work, then, he said. He squatted down and grabbed hold of the corpse by its arm. It was fresh enough that he could still drag it that way. They'd killed a lot of these humans less than an hour ago. Ryer nodded slowly. You'd do well to remain diligent. He pointed off into the distance at the ziggurat, its black cap visible.
There we go.
Ryer nodded slowly. You'd do well to remain diligent. He pointed off into the distance at the ziggurat, its black cap visible above the ruins of the nearby city where they conducted their raid. They are always watching. Do not forget. Do not deceive. That was a phrase often repeated, straight from the Praetor's own gnashing maw. When it all started, the Graken's speech was just nonsense to him, but that was before they jabbed a needle in his neck and implanted a chip in his brain. At least, that's what he assumed they did. He'd never asked, and if he had, he knew he would have been thrown into a skiff just like the poor soul he was dragging now. Lifting the bodies was easy. The strength the Graken had given him made him stronger than 5 men. Still no match for the Graken themselves, but lifting a 180-pound sack of flesh was like a bag of groceries to him now. Groceries the store. A sharp hiss came from the edge of the tree line. One of the other chosen was signaling the group. A runner, Ryer called out. Alex couldn't rationalize what happened next. Something came over him at the sight of humans now, especially when they ran. A powerful bloodlust that demanded satisfaction and indulgence. Whatever the Graken had done to his brain and the brains of every other chosen, it made them like monsters. Worse than that, his legs carried him off running into the field. He was part of a group of 5, chasing down that one, a woman. Alex pulled ahead of the others. Catching up to the woman was inevitable, but being the one to make the kill was what mattered. He pounced, slashing at the woman's neck. Blood sprayed in a satisfying arc from the wound as she tumbled to the ground. Something fell from her hands. No, the child was 2, maybe 3. Blonde curls on her head. Alex recoiled out of instinct. Not the kind that had been instilled in him by the Graken. It came from a place deep inside him, the last remnants of what made him human. The wave of bloodlust came crashing down on him a moment later. He writhed, fighting with himself. The others were catching up behind him. Come run, run far away. The girl looked up at him with piercing blue eyes, frozen in terror. Alex let out a guttural roar, extending his sharp claws, anything to scare the child into running off. She scurried on her hands and knees into a patch of tall grass, disappearing. You may prove yourself yet, Ryer said. He'd stopped a ways off with the rest of the group, probably once they realized that Alex was going to claim the kill. Bring that one back to the skiff, and don't drag it this time. Alex looked down at the woman in the grass. She was clinging on to the last few moments of life, looking up at him with the same blue eyes the girl had looked at her with. She couldn't speak, but she mouthed the words anyway. Thank you. Alex picked her up, throwing her over his shoulder, and turned back to the direction of the skiff. He added her to the pile and counted. It's full, he said. 29. Another hissed at him. We can fit more, but Ryer agreed. No, this is adequate. We will take this haul back to the ziggurat. Alex and the other chosen all grabbed hold of one vertical post that protruded from the corners of the skiff, finding a place to plant their feet among the bodies so they didn't slip and fall off. Ryer took his place at the front of the skiff, standing in a small, raised platform where the control mechanisms were mounted on a small pedestal. The hovercraft cut across the field in the direction of the ziggurat. Alex looked out into the tall grass, looking for the girl. She must have been smart, because he saw no trace of her. They passed right by the spot where he'd killed her mother, and there was no evidence she was even there. Run, he whispered. At the edge of the field was the road. It was littered with abandoned vehicles and overgrown with vegetation, but there was enough of a path that they could use it to get into the city ruins. Menial labor of this kind was typical. Hunt down a group of survivors, kill them, load their bodies onto the skiff, cart them back to the ziggurat, process them, throw them in the grinders, distribute the mixture to the feeding silos, eat. There was plenty of reason to complain, but the self was suppressed to the point that the effort required to muster cull such a protest wasn't worth it. An overwhelming feeling of apathy consumed any thoughts Alex had of resisting the Graken. Such a protest wasn't worth it. An overwhelming feeling of apathy consumed any thoughts Alex had of resisting the Graken, and he observed the same in many of his peers among the chosen. But then there were this like Ryer. He seemed to enjoy it, revel in it. At every step along the way he was in full cooperation with their masters. It made Alex wonder what he was like before everything fell. Was it just the way he was? Or did the Kraken do something different with him? Perhaps he was more susceptible to the techniques the Kraken employed. Alex wouldn't get the chance to know, and the thought of asking Ryer directly was too much work. The former capital of Saren was a demolition zone. Considerable damage had been done when the Kraken first arrived, but the wear and tear the city received as time went on. The former capital of Saren was a demolition zone. Considerable damage had been done when the Kraken first arrived, but the wear and tear the city received as time went on was considerable. There was no care taken in preserving the order of things from before. Vegetation was overgrown. Trash and rubble were everywhere, spread about by the wind. Buildings caught fire, sometimes lasting for weeks as they spread across an entire district and burned themselves out. The Kraken didn't seem to care. In fact, it was difficult to tell what they actually cared about. Was this all just a game to them? Like ripping off the wings of a butterfly just to see what happens? Because you can? The skiff ride home was one of the only times he had to think about these things. It always felt cut short. The ziggurat was visible in the distance. The shorter buildings that were still standing did block the view of it when you were on the streets. It was impossible to miss once you had an unobstructed view of it, though. It was completely inhuman in terms of its design, resembling the chitin that covered the bodies of the chosen more than it did anything else. The black structure looks almost organic, its wide base like the trunk of a tree, digging into the ground. The apex of the It was completely inhuman in terms of its design, resembling the chitin that covered the bodies of the chosen more than it did anything else. The black structure looks almost organic, its wide base like the trunk of a tree, digging into the ground. The apex of the pyramid structure was 4 or 5 stories into the air. You could climb up the sloped wall if you wanted to, but it was covered with spines that protruded at odd angles, and no surface was predictable enough to visualize a path to thwart top. A domed platform sat on top of the pyramid, supported by a rib structure from underneath as it hung over the smallest layers at the top of the pyramid. One might have assumed that was where the praetor stayed, sitting over the top of everything where he could observe from in high. Kraken didn't think that way, though. The praetor's chamber was deep in the belly of the ziggurat, below ground where he could not be disturbed. The dome and its balconies were where the chosen were kept, sheltered and fed. Alex assumed it was because of the view of the city, like a constant reminder of what the Kraken had done to humanity, a twisted show of dominance. They could look out at the sunrise coming up over the scene of desolation as they ate their half-cooked flesh paste every morning. Come to think of it, he was hungry. The skiff stopped at the base of the ziggurat and the chosen stepped off. Load the bodies, Ryer ordered. There was an open chute in the side of the ziggurat just for that purpose. Gathering up the bodies was slow, but this port always went quick. It was almost satisfying, the sound the bodies made as they slid down the chute. A low rumble interrupted their work. The other chosen stopped right in the middle of what they were doing when they heard the sound. Alex kept dragging a body over to the chute, setting it on the lip, the legs half in. It was that woman from the field. Ryer hissed. Stillness. The praetor approaches. Alex looked up with little interest through the thin carapace of chitin that covered his head. The praetor's booming steps were unmistakable. He had a slow stride, like he knew you were anticipating his arrival with each one. Flesh procured. That monster's voice was unintelligible to Alex's ears, but the implant they put in his head did the interpreting for him. The Kraken spoke with a combination of death gnashing, hissing, and guttural bellows. They made sounds that no living creature was supposed to make, impossible to describe with human language, and you didn't hear the interpretation of their speech instead of what they were actually saying. You heard a mixture of both. They wanted you to know they were monsters, and never forget it. Ryer bowed his head, the praetor's green light illuminating him. We have procured the flesh, praetor, as instructed. Alex looked down in the dirt. If Ryer wasn't making eye contact, then you didn't either. The praetor stood among them, a towering hulk. Alex could see his hoof-like feet, bony pillars with the appearance of polished obsidian. Observe, I have, always, without end, seeing all, knowing all. Alex looked over at the body of the woman he'd set at the edge of the chute. She was ever so slightly starting to slide down, gravity overcoming the weight of her other half handing over the lip, until she eventually slid down all on her own. Left behind, unacceptable, forgotten, my graciousness, deceived. You have made me. Alex looked up slowly from the chute to the praetor. He couldn't look any higher than his waist. Ever since the day he'd ripped Alex's family to pieces, he couldn't look at him in the eye again. Troubled warrior, deceit. ripped Alex's family to pieces. He couldn't look at him in the eye again. Troubled warrior, deceived. You have. Unacceptable. The girl in the field. Alex could see her eyes staring back at him, her blonde curls on her head. He should have known. They were always watching. He's let her go for nothing. The Kraken were surely hunting her down right at that moment, and she would meet the same fate she was supposed to meet at Alex's hands. A monstrous hand reached out, wrapping around Alex's neck and lifting him up into the air. The Predator reached up and ripped the carapace off of his face. Alex let out a scream. He felt all of it. Every synapse in his body integrated with the chitin that covered him. Failure, disgrace, disposal. The Predator's eye was locked on him, lidless and menacing. The V-shaped iris curled at its points, a sign of anger. The green bioluminescent glow intensifying within. He opened his mouth, like the shadowed entrance of a perilous cave, lined with jagged razors. We can dispose of him, Predator, Ryer said. Do not dirty your hands with this worm's blood. Flesh, spoiled by infidelity no doubt. The Predator tightened his grip on Alex's neck. Alex felt like his head was about to pop when he was violently whipped around and flung into the air, landing on the edge of the skiff. Taint not, this holy place, with this vile one's blood. Ryer shoved his way through the other chosen to get to Alex, grabbing him under the arms and dragging him onto the skiff. Alex couldn't move a muscle, feeling an intense weakness come over him. Back, Ryer shouted at the others, shooing the vultures away. He is not to be feasted upon. I will dispatch with him outside the city. Alex looked up to see the faces of the other chosen, cursing him as the skiff started flying away. He closed his eyes, in and out of consciousness for most of the ride. By the time he felt the strength to stand, the skiff had stopped. Alex rolled onto his side, grabbing hold of the edge of the skiff and dragging himself off of it. He landed in dusty gravel, the driveway at the farm, and the truck. Surely they'd be there when he looked up. This was a dream, a nightmare that was about to end. Ryer grabbed into him, lifting him up to his feet. He hooked his hand into the gap between Alex's neck and the broken carapace, inflicting even more pain. Alex struggled, turning his head away, and it was then he saw the cliffside behind him. No, just kill me. Alex began to cry. He couldn't remember the last time he'd done that. He looked at Ryer through the chitin of his carapace, expecting anger. Instead, it was like looking in a mirror. Ryer reached up and pulled his carapace away from his face gently, looking at Alex with his naked eyes. Whether you survive or not, doesn't matter to me, Ryer said, holding Alex there at the edge of the cliff. The look on his eyes was conflicted, betraying his human nature that hid beneath the surface. But survive, if you can. Ryer let go. Alex fell back, unable to resist his fall.
Okay. All right. I think we are going to have to call it there. It's 11 p.m. just about. So, thank you, folks. We will be back again tomorrow. Back at it. Toodaloo.